warm welcome to you all. So, in the previous lesson, we have discussed about constitution. Hope everyone understood. If any doubts, you can ask me or you can text me. Please ask in the next Zoom interaction session. I'll answer your questions. Okay. I gave you some work, isn't it? To know the basics about constitution. Hope in the previous class you have learned about the constitution. Through the videos you can understand what is a constitution. Okay, so once again we revise the definition of constitution. Everyone, while listening to the class, please take a notebook and a pen to point out the important points either from the textbook or write in your notes. Is that clear? Good. Now, first of all, what do you mean by constitution? What do you mean by constitution? Constitution means a body of fundamental principles, according to which a state or an organization is acknowledged or to be governed. Little tough, isn't it? So, easy one. Constitution is nothing but a book with set of rules. Constitution is nothing but a book with set of rules. So, what is the need to write the constitution? What does constitution states? What does the index of the constitution? In the previous classes we discussed, but once again I am revising. Okay, the preamble of the Indian Constitution. What is the preamble? In the morning prayers we used to say, "We the people of India." It states that the content of the Constitution in a short form. The introduction of the Constitution. Okay, so before independence, we were under the British rule for a period of nearly more than 180 years. The same period, before Britishers, we were under the Mughal rule. Okay, so one after the one, we were becoming slaves. But as we were fighting with the Britishers, means we were under monarchical rule. Monarchy. M-O-N-A-R-C-H-Y. Monarchy. What do you mean by monarchy? Monarchy is nothing but one who reigns over a state or territory, usually for life and by hereditary right. Means a particular person will be ruling one particular area, okay, to rule the people. But this comes on the hereditary basis. One after the one from the same family will be ruling the same place. Okay, so let us learn about the rules of the constitution. Clear? Under the monarchical rule, we doesn't have any option to express our views, because the rulers who are ruling the particular area will rule according to the taste of the person or the wish of the person. So we struggled a lot, because at that time many discriminations were there, and a social sin called untouchability is also in existence. So in order to prevent all these social evils, we started fighting for our independence along with the Britishers, but not only with the Britishers, but also we want our nation to be free from the foreign rule. So in that scenario, what we have done, we have amended. Amended is nothing but making a minor change in the document. Okay, so the group of people formed together like an society or a committee, okay, to make a constitution under the guidance of the chairperson, Dr. Bhimrao Ambedkar, where Dr. B.R. Ambedkar worked as the chairman of the drafting committee. Important point to be noted. Okay, next Babu Rajendra Prasad worked as the president at also, and also the main key role which was played by the Ambedkar is a remarkable one. Okay, so when we got the independence, August 15, 1947, after a great struggle, many of the people sacrificed their lives. Finally, we attained independence. But after getting independence, nearly 3 years it took. Why 3 years to write our own constitution? Because many of the scholars, political leaders, or the people who sacrificed their services has given a wonderful idea how to prepare about the Indian constitution. Okay, next. So we have prepared drafting committee. What are the rules and regulations we have observed from the foreign countries were taken from that country, okay, from that sort of constitution, and we have amended is nothing but a small change. Okay, and we prepared our constitution. We have prepared our constitution of our own. Here, a drafting committee was organized. What is a drafting committee? What is a draft? Draft is nothing but preliminary version version of a piece of writing is called as draft. We state India as a social, secular, democratic, fraternity, discrimination, feudal system. These are all the words what we generally find. Okay. Where we were under the British rule, in those days we struggled a lot. Because of the discriminations, we have caste-based discriminations, we have employment-based discriminations, not only these two, gender-based discriminations, educational inequalities, gender-based inequalities were there. Next, education inequalities were there. These were all the things where we struggled a lot. Because of all these things, when we struggled a lot, it makes us to think once and twice where we should attain freedom. So many of the people sacrificed their lives in order to attain our independence. So when we got independent, August 15th, 1947, we got our independence. So as we are together, one day before, the Muslims, under the guidance of Muhammad Ali Jinnah, asked for a separate state, and they were succeeded in having a separate state. Okay, in those days, a separate nation has been formed where most of the people, along with Hindus, migrated to a new piece of land called Pakistan before one day of independence. That is 14th August 1947. Okay, so all these were the discriminations what we have struggled. They believed that these Muslims were not treated equally along with. In those days, more than 70% of the Indians were Hindus. Even though unity in diversity is existed, but the people doesn't believe that they felt that they were being treated badly. Okay, so these general based or caste based, gender based, education based inequalities were to be vanished. How it will be vanished? Because through everyone should consider equally. Through the law, it is possible. How laws are made? By the guidance of the people. So we came to know that India is such a democratic country, and where we have prepared our own rules and regulations. Okay, so our constitution, the makers of our Indian constitution kept all these in mind, and they prepared in such a way that Indian constitution should be equal for all the people without any discriminations. Not rich and poor, not considering about rich and poor, not considering about educated and ill-educated. Okay, not to be an tribal one, not to be the person who is living in a town. So no general based or gender based discriminations, no caste based discriminations, no education inequality should not be followed. Okay, so employment discriminations also existed in those days. That's why from long ago, India is a federal system. What do you mean by federal system? India used to follow federal system. The government in which, what write the definition of federal system? What do you mean by federal system? The government in which the individual states of a country have control over their own affairs, but are under the guidance by the central government, but are controlled by the but are guided by the central government for national decisions. In case of national decisions, there existed the federal system. King used to rule in the center where he is having its capital, and he used to appoint many of the people to work under him. The same is the federal system, where the central government in the central level used to follow used to treat all the nations equally, and certainly passes the rules and regulations where every state, because a state is small territory, isn't it? Every state has to follow the rules and regulations which were what we can say, the best word what we use is which was enforced or enacted, where they have to listen to the words of the central government. Okay, so the discrimination should be eradicated. So does discriminations to be eradicated. What is discrimination? Especially in those days, present also we are facing many discriminations regarding in the grounds of race, age or sex. Isn't it? Girls and boys were not equally treated. Men and women were not treated equally. Okay, job opportunities will not be given. Some sort of obligations were there in this discriminations. So when this discrimination will be eradicated? When India is being followed a secular country, then there will be no discrimination. So you have to understand what do you mean by secularism. What do you mean by secularism? Secularism is nothing but denoting attitudes, activities or things that have no religion or spiritual basis. That have no religious or spiritual basis. Means the person who is the head of the nation should not encourage or discourage any religion. Secularism is nothing but following our own religion according to the wish of a person. Is that clear? Next word we are going to discuss is about fraternity. What do you mean by fraternity? The important point. Fraternity is nothing but a group of people together sharing a common profession or interest, allowing the people to follow their own interest to do the work or nature of work. We should not enforce or we should not force the people to follow one particular occupation, because we should. Next, and we have in India, we have three bodies, individual bodies, already we told. What are the three individual bodies? Executive, judiciary and legislature. Repeatedly, you may feel that repeatedly we are learning some of the points. But to be frank, these all points will be considered from your textbook. Please go through the textbook, read the textbook well, then you will have an idea. Okay, next important point is sovereign. What do you mean by sovereign? Sovereign is nothing but possessing supreme or ultimate power. Possessing supreme or ultimate power. Next, India is a republic country, isn't it? India is a republic country where a state which is free from the bonded laborship. Okay, where we are supreme, a state which is having the supreme power to follow its own rules and regulations, which is not held up with some other hands. So the power is held in the people's hand. So that is by the people, for the people and to the people. Because we have a chance. Here you have to remember that universal adult franchise. What is universal adult franchise? Because we believe that India is a democratic country. Okay, let us discuss in the our Indian constitution was prepared in such a way that it should be benefited for each and everyone. So, if you observe our Indian constitution, it is the world's longest and the biggest constitution of the world. Okay, the lengthiest constitution you can find. The Indian constitution consists of 395 articles divided into 22 parts and 8 schedules. Come again. Our Indian constitution is written in such a way with 395 articles, okay, which was divided into 22 parts and 8 schedules. Okay, it was written at the time of independence, after attaining independence, after 1947 to 1949. We got our constitution into existence, that is 1950. Okay, August 15th we got independence, that is what we celebrate as Independence Day, and our constitution came into force on 26th January 1950. So we call this day as the Republic Day. Republic Day means where we have chosen our own rules and regulations. Okay, next one. After we discussed now 395 articles, present they were changed to 448 articles and divided into 25 parts and 12 schedules. Important point. Okay, so once again I will tell, where Indian constitution was written with 395 articles divided into 22 parts and 8 schedules. At present, in our constitution book, which was located at New Delhi in the Parliament Bhavan with 448 articles and 25 parts and 12 schedules. Okay, Indian constitution is also modified, means amended. Amendment is nothing but a slight change according to the convenience of the people. Okay, so many women freedom fighters were there. I'll show you a video about how Gandhiji struggled to be united within the people to attain a freedom of India. With this video, we'll wind up the session and you can see some of the famous women freedom fighters like Jhansi Lakshmibai, Annie Besant, next Sarojini Naidu, Begum Aziaz Rasool or Umabhai, Durgabhai Deshmukh. Okay, where they have participated in the non-cooperation movement. The main motto is the women also sacrificed their lives, left their families, participated equally along with men. So let us have a video on women freedom fighters, and not only on women freedom fighters but also the views where how Gandhiji has encouraged the people of India to fight against the British. Remember, after this video we will wind up this session.
There is an indefinable, mysterious power that pervades everything. I feel it, though I do not see it. It is this unseen power which makes itself felt and yet defies all proof, because it is so unlike all that I perceive through my senses. It transcends the senses, but it is possible to reason out the existence of God to a limited extent. Even in ordinary affairs, we know that people do not know who rules or why and how he rules, and yet they know that there is a power that certainly rules. In my tour last year in Mysore, I met many poor villagers, and I found upon inquiry that they did not know who ruled Mysore. They simply said, some god ruled it. If the knowledge of these poor people was so limited about their ruler, I, who am infinitely lesser in respect to God than they to their ruler, need not be surprised if I do not realize the presence of God, the King of Kings. Nevertheless, I do feel, as the poor villagers felt about Mysore, that there is orderliness in the universe. There is an unalterable law governing everything and every being that exists or lives. It is not a blind law, for no blind law can govern the conduct of living beings. And thanks to the marvelous researches of Sir J.C. Bose, it can now be proved that even matter is life. That law, then, which governs all life is God. Law and the lawgiver are one. I may not deny the law or the lawgiver because I know so little about it or him. Just as my denial or ignorance of the existence of an earthly power will avail me nothing, even so my denial of God and his law will not liberate me from its operation, whereas humble and mute acceptance of divine authority makes life's journey easier, even as the acceptance of earthly rule makes life under it easier. I do dimly perceive that whilst everything around me is ever changing, ever dying, there is underlying all that change a living power that is changeless, that holds all together, that creates, dissolves, and recreates. That informing power of spirit is God, and since nothing else that I see merely through the senses can or will persist, he alone is. And is this power benevolent or malevolent? I see it as purely benevolent, for I can see that in the midst of death, life persists. In the midst of untruth, truth persists. In the midst of darkness, light persists. Hence I gather that God is life, truth, light. He is love. He is the supreme good. But he is no God who merely satisfies the intellect, if he ever does. God, to be God, must rule the heart and transform it. He must express himself in every smallest act of his votary. This can only be done through a definite realization, more real than the five senses can ever produce. Sense perceptions can be, and often are, false and deceptive, however real they may appear to us. Where there is realization outside the senses, it is infallible. It is proved not by extraneous evidence, but in the transformed conduct and character of those who have felt the real presence of God within. Such testimony is to be found in the experiences of an unbroken line of prophets and sages in all countries and climes. To reject this evidence is to deny oneself. This realization is preceded by an immovable faith. He who would, in his own person, test the fact of God's presence can do so by a living faith. And since faith itself cannot be proved by extraneous evidence, the safest course is to believe in the moral government of the world, and therefore in the supremacy of the moral law, the law of truth and love. Exercise of faith will be the safest where there is a clear determination, summarily, to reject all that is contrary to truth and love. I confess that I have no argument to convince through reason. Faith transcends reason.